update today after more than a dozen BSO employees were charged in a PPP loan fraud investigation.
6 of the employees charged in the case appearing in federal court moments ago. Local 10 News reporter Syra Onwar is live in Fort Lauderdale with the details. Syra.
So 5 of those individuals were arraigned today. A 6th had her arraignment rescheduled to next week. They all appeared here at the federal courthouse in Fort Lauderdale before the same judge to hear their charges. We'll take you to video now. More than a dozen Broward Sheriff's Office employees are suspected of fraudulently applying for and receiving Paycheck Protection Program or PPP loans. So the loans were established during the pandemic to help businesses pay their workers amid all of the restrictions. So 17 employees who work as either sworn law enforcement, BSO deputies, or jailers, they face federal charges. 6 of them appeared today for arraignment on PPP wire fraud charges. They were Deputy Alexandra Acosta, Marcus Powell, Deputy Alan Dorville, Ancy Moranci, and Carolyn Wade. Those 5 all entered not guilty pleas and requested a trial by jury. Katrina Brown, she had her arraignment reset to next week so she could secure an attorney. So back out here on the scene now, all of those individuals who appeared today who were able to get arraigned, they requested a trial by jury. They all pleaded not guilty, and none of them had any comment to media as they stepped out of the courthouse today, but we'll keep you updated as this develops. But that is the very latest from downtown Fort Lauderdale. Syra Onwar, Local 10 News.
Taxpayer money meant to help thousands of small business owners during the COVID pandemic. Instead, this amount went to a handful of drug dealers. That's according to St. Pete police, who say these suspects used the loans to fund a major drug ring. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer live for us at St. Pete Police Headquarters. So what did you find out about this, Aaron?
Well, Cynthia, you heard that police spokesperson there right at the top of the show. She called this a different level of sophistication in this crime. These criminals are accused of figuring out how to file the paperwork, do it correctly, get the money that they wanted, use it to fund their drug ring, and then potentially keep it from business owners who desperately needed it. As she decorates cakes in her St. Pete bakery, Jill Whalen can't help but feel fortunate.
Because I had no money to go on.
She says the Small Business Administration's Payroll Protection Loan Program did what the government intended. It saved her store as COVID-19 devastated the economy.
I got to pay them the whole time we were closed. I paid all my bills, and everything was taken care of because of that. We would have been in serious trouble if we didn't get it.
Yeah. However, not everyone is as honest as Whalen. St. Pete police say they just arrested 3 criminals who cheated the system.
They knew the ins and outs, what they needed to say in order to get these loans, and then they just used them for whatever they wanted to.
Investigators say in this case, the money was used to help fund a major drug operation. Dante Payne, Russell Jones, and Kenneth Davis Jr. are all accused of applying for and receiving fraudulent SBA loans that were supposed to help real businesses stay afloat during the pandemic.
They were willing to take a step further and defraud financial institutions and take money from the federal government for these fake businesses and fake employees.
According to arrest documents, Payne claimed he owned a landscaping business that doesn't exist and received about $21,000 to cover payroll and overhead expenses. We're told Davis got the same amount for his fake company, and Jones is accused of getting $9,500 to help with a non-existent barber shop. All 3 were arrested as part of a major drug roundup announced last week that sent about 30 suspected dealers and users to jail.
This was just pounds and pounds of marijuana, up to $100,000 worth of drugs a week in our community.
The news stunned Whalen, who can't imagine where she'd be without the $40,000 in loans she desperately needed.
I'm floored at it. I can't believe people would do that.
And a 4th person is also now accused of committing these same crimes. A spokesperson for the Small Business Administration says that the agency does not comment on cases like this that involve active investigations, but Cynthia, police say that it's very likely that these criminals could eventually face federal charges down the road.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many other people were able to scam the system like that, too. I suspect they're not the only ones. Thank you, Aaron.
Remember those federal COVID pandemic loans? Well, billions of dollars dished out to small businesses to help keep them afloat during the shutdowns. Well, a North Alabama woman now admits she swindled taxpayers out of nearly $150,000 in loans she didn't qualify for.
Wait 31's Matt Kroschel is live for us this afternoon. And Matt, you dug into the grand jury indictment where the government outlines how she did it.
Marie, inside the federal courtroom here in Huntsville, Kaylee Harris taking that plea deal, admitting to creating a fake business name to secure those funds. Then she says she sent some of that money to a third party, another person living in Texas, also a big no-no here. The U.S. Attorney's Office telling me, quote, individuals like the defendant took advantage of the program and exploited it for their personal gain. They are continuing to track down people who abuse that program. In the Harris case, she admits that in July of 2020, she lied on that loan application, creating the fake business name, then sending $30,000 of the money she received to another person in Texas. Harris could face up to 10 years in prison because of this felony charge. The sentencing will be happening early next year in February, and the judge will have the final say.
New at 6, 3 Bay Area companies have agreed to pay thousands of dollars to settle allegations that they abused the Paycheck Protection Program during the pandemic. The 3 companies are La Baguette, which runs a bakery in Palo Alto. It's agreed to pay $430,000. In Santa Clara, Dynamic Integrated Solutions Incorporated, an industrial equipment supplier, will pay $50,000 in civil penalties. Also paying $50,000, Priority Acquisitions Incorporated, a licensed general contractor based in Castro Valley. The 3 companies are accused of getting duplicate PPP loans, then having the loans forgiven. Each is also paying back the original loan amount. No wrongdoing was proved, but the companies all agreed to settle the allegations against them. The whistleblower who raised concerns is getting $80,000 as part of those settlements. Congress started the Paycheck Protection Program in March of 2020 as the pandemic took hold to provide small businesses loans so they could continue to pay their employees while business was slowed or stopped during shelter-in-place orders. Today, the House Oversight Committee held its first public hearing on COVID fraud.
Tonight, the flashy and lavish lifestyle of a social media influencer helping to put her behind bars. Danielle Miller pleading guilty to a $1.5 million fraud scheme, accused of stealing the identities of more than 10 people across the country to obtain COVID-19 relief money, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. Prosecutors say Miller's social media posts documented her expensive Birkin designer handbags, which if real can cost 6 figures, excursions on private jets, and visits to fancy hotels, including the Beverly Hills Hotel in California, all funded by the stolen cash meant for COVID PPP loans.
It's probably easier to catch her because she's on social media flaunting it.
The criminal complaint describing a photo of Miller in front of a white Rolls-Royce, the distinct hotel behind her. Investigators using the photo to match her to a fake Massachusetts driver's license. That license used to open a fraudulent bank account, eventually funded with tens of thousands of dollars in pandemic-related small business loans.
When you take money from the federal government, it's a felony. So it's a serious charge, a serious indictment. Where when we look at actually what she's getting charged with, it's pretty significant.
The charges in this case, 3 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, a combined possible sentence of more than 60 years. Her attorney telling NBC News Miller has accepted responsibility for her role in the offenses as charged. Miller, who has been out on a $100,000 bond since her arrest in 2021, even documenting what some might say is her least fashionable accessory, an ankle monitor.
So this is an individual actually who is flaunting what they've done, and they call themselves, I'm a con artist. They're proud of this, and she's actually using it as another platform to define herself.
While Miller's case is high profile, pandemic-related fraud was and continues to be widespread. The government's Pandemic Response Accountability Committee estimating the losses are in the billions and beyond.
I've said it wouldn't surprise me if at the end of this, it exceeds $100 billion in fraud. It's certainly going to be tens of billions of dollars. The precise number, we just don't know yet.
The victims of scammers like Miller include taxpayers, those whose identities were stolen, and those who needed the money most.
Every penny that went to a fraudster from the unemployment insurance program didn't go to someone who was unemployed. And that's a real tragedy out of this.
All right, Valerie Castro joins us now in studio. Valerie, people who suffered during the pandemic are going to be seeing this story being very upset when they lost their businesses. What is the federal government doing? We know the White House has been trying to get some of this COVID relief money that went to fraudsters back.
Right. So just last week, the White House announced a $1.6 billion plan to combat pandemic-era fraud and recover lost funds. Since the start of the pandemic, more than 1,000 people have been convicted of COVID-related fraud. And Tom, that number is only expected to go up.
1,000 people, yeah, it's probably a lot more. All right, Valerie, thank you for that.
No one answered at this Southeast Memphis address earlier today, where according to PPP loan data, Kenyatta Hooper operated a hobby, toy, and games business and is listed as the only owner. Records show Hooper received a PPP loan from the Small Business Administration for a little more than $38,000 in March of 2021, money that would supposedly pay the salaries of 4 employees. However, an investigation showed that Hooper used those funds designed to provide emergency financial assistance during the COVID-19 pandemic for herself and others. They say Hooper allegedly submitted fake documents and fraudulent applications for PPP loans and directed others to do the same, allegedly took kickbacks from people she assisted in filing fraudulent PPP loan applications, falsely certified she would use the funds for permissible expenses, and instead spent loan money on a Maserati, personal travel, concerts, and gambling. The fraudulent scheme drew sharp comments from the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Tennessee, saying in part, bad actors unfortunately have targeted this critical assistance program and fraudulently diverted much-needed resources. Records show Hooper is also listed as the owner of Smart Money Solutions on East Shelby Drive. We tried to reach Kenyatta Hooper at a number given for the business, but got a recording.
I'm sorry, but the person you called has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet. Goodbye.
The business, now vacant, received a PPP loan in the amount of $20,833 in April of 2021. According to the PPP website, the loan, which was to pay salaries of 2 employees, has been paid in full or forgiven. An employee at one of the other businesses in this strip mall who would not go on camera said she had only seen Hooper a couple of times at Smart Money Solutions and never saw any customers inside.
Now, at this point, Hooper faces up to 20 years in prison on each of the 6 counts of wire fraud.
During the height of the COVID pandemic, the federal government allocated more than $900 billion in Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP loans, to help struggling businesses and nonprofits stay afloat. Unfortunately, a fraction of that money got into the wrong hands all across the country, including in Joliet.
The JPD detectives and officers worked countless hours.
During Operation Triple P, Joliet detectives tracked down 25 people suspected of lying on PPP loan applications while under indictment for gun and drug felony offenses.
That's how we started this, because we knew the application would be fraudulent right when they selected. They had no open felony indictment, so we started from there.
15 suspects targeted have been arrested and charged, while another 10 suspects have active warrants for their arrests. They're suspected of applying for loans worth about $20,000.
These triple P loans, that if they're obtaining them fraudulently, they're taking that money out of the businesses in our local area that actually need them. So if they're taking that pot, then our local business community can't go and get that money.
Authorities say during the investigation, some of the suspects were in custody for their felony offenses and used jail phones to complete their fraudulent PPP loan process. Investigators say bank records also indicate that some of the suspects used the illegal loans to bond out of jail. The suspects didn't make it hard for police to track them down.
They were given their actual name and their actual residence where they stay at. Some were even apartment buildings.
Authorities say for the most part, those under investigation filed applications for fake businesses classified as a sole proprietorship, a salon, or barbershop.
They researched business